Hamilton lay propped against a thicket of pillows in the master suite of Hawthorne House, his breathing shallow and rattling like wind through broken shutters. And the fatal quiet of the room did nothing to choke off the feud blooming at his bedside. Dana Flint-Hyde, steel-spined, determined never again to be dismissed as a mere companion, sat on the mattress's edge clutching Bill's left hand as though it were a deed to the universe. Haley, bare-armed, diamonds dancing at her throat, leaned over from the opposite side, her manicured nails spread possessively across the blankets, staking a rival claim. Their voices, low at first, rose and tangled, Dani calling herself the only woman who had nursed Bill through the last 2 hospitalizations. Haley countering that a decade-old Nevada marriage certificate trumped all bedside vigils. The oxygen machine hissed, one long mechanical exhale for every accusation, one shorter gasp for every rebuttal. Bill's eyes flickered open just long enough to register the contest, then drifted shut again, leaving the title of legal wife hanging between the 2 women like a crown suspended by threads. Outside the chamber, Vernon Hamilton, Bill's younger brother, equal parts back alley swagger and boardroom cunning, strode through corridors that smelled of beeswax and old mahogany, rehearsing the victory speech he meant to deliver at the reading of his brother's will. Vernon had every reason to believe he would inherit the lion's share. Bill had promised as much after the Crimea refinery deal, and the draft Vernon had once glimpsed gave him controlling interest in Hamilton Global Holdings. But promises curdled in the heat of greed, and lawyers liked to surprise. Vernon's pulse quickened when Nicole Sullivan, Bill's longtime counsel and sometime confidant, intercepted him at the landing. Her lips twisted around news potent enough to topple kingdoms. A fresh codicil had surfaced that morning, dated 5 weeks prior, stamped with Bill's tremulous signature and notarized at an out-of-town hospice. Nicole's fingers trembled, although her voice did not. She announced that the amendment redistributed shares, real estate, and offshore trusts in a pattern nobody had predicted. Percentages sliced thinner than parchment, alliances rearranged like chess pieces knocked over in a midnight quarrel. The paper was genuine, she said, verified, ironclad, immune to shredders or hush money. Vernon felt the hallway tilt beneath him as trajectories he had charted for years shattered in an instant. Word of the codicil traveled faster than servants could draw drapes. By nightfall, Hawthorne House echoed with the footfalls of litigators, private investigators, and to rival public relations firms already drafting dueling narratives for the morning news cycle. At the epicenter, Dani and Haley pivoted from marital sparring to asset warfare without missing a beat. Dani's claim, Bill's most recent declarations of love were tantamount to common-law marriage under state precedent. The she deserved spousal override on any clause that threatened her future. Haley's counter, Nevada's statute recognized their union irrespective of subsequent bedmates, and the codicil's silence on her name implied that her prerogatives remained intact. Both retained counsel within hours. Both insisted on remaining in the master suite, each posting a paralegal sentinel at the foot of the bed to log every whispered word Bill uttered in his drifting lucidity. When Bill murmured "my everything," two pens scribbled simultaneously in attributing the phrase to Dani, the other to Haley, while the old man, adrift in morphine clouds, might have been addressing only the ceiling. Nicole, usually a specter in tasteful suits who favored back-channel diplomacy, found herself cast center stage. She alone possessed the original codicil. She alone knew that a line in the margins granted her executor power should familial conflict endanger the estate's solvency. That authority felt radioactive, but necessity hardened her spine. She brokered a midnight conference in the library, seating Dani, Haley, and Vernon at a round table whose oak surface had borne the elbows of Hamilton men since the Civil War. The smell of cigar smoke from past generations seemed to linger, pricking nerves. Nicole explained the codicil created a Hamilton Foundation, a philanthropic leviathan absorbing nearly a third of the fortune. Its board to be chaired by whichever spouse the probate court recognized as Bill's lawful partner. That seat came bundled with voting stock enough to control the foundation's investment arm, effectively the empire itself. Vernon's thundercloud expression said he had just been galled. His chance to rule had slipped into the hands of whichever woman won the bridal bout. He slapped the table, cursed Bill's sentimentality, claimed fraud. Dani smirked as if tasting victory. Haley's jaw clenched like a vice. Litigation commenced before dawn. Court clerks in 3 jurisdictions received electronically filed suits challenging marital validity, mental capacity, undue influence, and the very order of witnesses. Paparazzi perched in sycamores to photograph Dani escorting Bill's nurse to her car, hoping to catch a confession. Drones hovered over the rose garden where Haley took tearful phone calls. Cable pundits christened the affair the Hamilton succession, and betting markets opened odds on which claimant would emerge triumphant. In downtown bars, traders drank bourbon and debated whether Hamilton stock would nosedive or rally under philanthropic restructuring. Speculators scoured social media for any scrap the women posted. A quote from Ecclesiastes on Dani's feed spiked futures trading in the morning. Haley's cryptic "love always wins" selfie wreaked havoc in the afternoon. Inside Hawthorne House, alliances mutated hourly. Vernon, recognizing that brute contest with 2 women armed by public sympathy was folly, attempted charm. He offered Dani a covert deal, secure her recognition as spouse, then appoint him CEO of Hamilton Global in exchange for lifetime dividends. Dani pretended interest, demanded proof of sincerity, and secretly recorded every promise. She forwarded the files to Nicole with a note, insurance. Haley retaliated by leaking a vintage photograph of her wedding day, Bill beaming in military dress whites, wedding cake knife in hand. The image flooded news feeds, talk show hosts wept over their romance. Yet a retired justice soon emerged claiming to have annulled that marriage in 2016 during a quiet weekend sitting. The document, unsealed, cast Haley's legal footing into quicksand. Meanwhile, Bill drifted near oblivion. Occasionally he surfaced in delirium to recollect Tuscan vineyards, the color of copper at dusk, or the smell of Dani's shampoo, or Haley's laugh echoing off canyon walls. Each recollection became Exhibit or B in petitions filed by the hour. Nurses switched his linens, avoiding stray microphones. Bodyguards frisked florists for listening devices. The mansion resembled an occupied citadel. Vernon retreated to a ground floor study to convene with bankers about moving liquid assets beyond judicial reach. Dani discovered the scheme, tipped Nicole, and an emergency injunction froze every account before Vernon could wire a cent to Zurich. Nicole's command over the codicil widened. Courts began regarding her as steward of Bill's intentions, and reporters hailed her as the Iron Angel of Hamilton fortune. The turning point arrived not in a courtroom, but in Bill's room at 3:12 a.m. When storm clouds hammered rain against antique glass and lightning illuminated Dani and Haley at opposite sides of the bed, both half asleep, world-weary, their lawsuit armies momentarily stilled. Bill's eyes opened bright and aware for the first time in weeks. He drew a rasping breath, gripped both their hands, and whispered, "Enough." Whether that word condemned the battle or crowned a victor no one could say. But his next action was unmistakable. He pressed a signet Ringoni Hamilton patriarchs had worn since railroads stitched the continent into Dani's palm, then kissed Haley's knuckles with lingering tenderness. His gaze passed to the painting of his great-grandfather, then to the doorway where Vernon lingered, and finally to Nicole, who stood with clipboard clutched to chest. Bill exhaled a final sigh that sounded eerily content and was gone. Chaos should have erupted, yet silence held for half a heartbeat, long enough for thunder to roll over the valley. Dani, Haley, Vernon, and Nicole stared at one another, tethered by the magnitude of the moment. The codicil, legally potent, still demanded interpretation. The ring in Dani's palm suggested personal intent. The kiss to Haley's hand implied undying affection. But neither gesture carried the clarity of notarized ink. Vernon, ever opportunist, advanced with a muttered condolence only to be blocked by Nicole, who declared the bedroom sealed under estate custodianship. She ordered guards to stand watch, summoned the county coroner, and prearranged a statement for the press. William H. Hamilton had died peacefully surrounded by loved ones, his philanthropic legacy ensured, his final wishes to be honored in full. Thus the Second War began, fiercer because Bill's living voice could no longer arbitrate. Dani argued that the ring constituted a symbolic bequest reaffirming marital status, bolstered by video footage from a hidden nanny cam she had planted among the hydrangeas on the nightstand, which revealed Bill's final gestures in crisp detail. Haley's counsel countered that a ring transfer was sentimental, not contractual, and that Bill's kiss to her hand demonstrated equal affection, requiring the court to honor the pre-existing marriage until disproved. Vernon tried to position himself as the neutral heir burdened with company stewardship, but leaked emails exposed his Zurich gambit. A judge froze his personal assets and scheduled a contempt hearing. Public sympathy tilted. Tabloids portrayed Dani as the steadfast caregiver wronged by bureaucratic technicality. Others depicted Haley as the first and only hard-chosen bride imprisoned by antiquated paperwork. Social feeds polarized, each side crowdfunding legal fees already surpassing 8 figures. Weeks ground on. Judges poured over testimony from handwriting experts, nurses, clergy, corporate auditors. A Scottish genealogist testified that the Hamilton signet ring customarily passed to the acknowledged spouse at death, giving Dani firepower. She paraded nurses who swore Bill addressed her as "my wife" in lucid intervals. Haley's lawyers presented an archivist who unearthed hotel receipts listing Mr. and Mrs. Hamilton in 5 countries during years Dani claimed exclusivity, conjuring images of rekindled marriage. Through it all, Nicole weathered subpoenas like hail, producing meticulous records, hospice logs, video diaries Bill had recorded for a planned memoir, encryption keys to trust funds set aside for philanthropic ventures. Each disclosure shifted the calculus, but never resolved it. The climax landed in the Court of Chancery on a sweltering August morning when Judge Arliss, exasperated by filibustering, demanded closing submissions. Dani's counsel argued the codicil's intent hinged on Bill's present tense desire crystallized in the ring and his dying word. Haley's counsel asserted statutory law could not be overturned by bedside theatrics. Vernon, representing himself after 3 firms withdrew, barked about shareholder panic and looming hostile takeovers, painting himself the reluctant hero who could save countless jobs if only granted emergency powers. Judge Arliss recessed, vanishing for a marathon deliberation while news vans idled outside, Anka sweating under arc lights. At dusk, gavel thundered. The court recognized the Nevada marriage as valid but found it annulled by the 2016 decree reinstating Bill's unmarried status until proven otherwise. However, the judge ruled that Bill's codicil empowered his estate to honor the spouse lawfully acknowledged in the moment of passing, a phrase previously overlooked in fine print. Because the signet ring, ancestral and emblematic, had been transferred to Dani in that moment, she became the codicil's designated spouse and the chair of the Hamilton Foundation. Gasps ricocheted, Dani's knees nearly buckled, but pride held her upright. Haley, tears blurring mascara, stormed from the courtroom. Vernon Ashen slumped into a pew. The judge's addendum stripped him of voting stock pending investigation. Reporters sprinted for phone lines. Hashtags exploded. Dani's victory, though seismic, proved Pyrrhic. Chairing the foundation meant shepherding billions into humanitarian initiative little but strapped by charitable law, offering scant personal enrichment. Salaries were capped, expense accounts audited quarterly by watchdog groups. Dani accepted nonetheless, resolved to reforge Hamilton wealth into living testament rather than monument. She relocated headquarters to a revitalized textile mill, hired displaced employees Vernon once laid off, and launched scholarship funds in Bill's memory. The market steadied. Hamilton Global stock upticked on goodwill. Haley, after initial fury, resurfaced with a memoir proposal framing her love story as tragic cautionary tale. Dani endorsed it publicly, bleeding animosity from old wounds. Vernon, stripped and humbled, negotiated a consulting role under Dani's terms, promising to channel his ferocious cunning toward foundation endowments. Nicole, ever composed, filed the final probate documents and faded from headlines, her reputation burnished. In late autumn, she visited Bill's grave, a modest headstone. No marble Angelson left a single crimson chrysanthemum. Wind rattled gold leaves overhead, whispering echoes of battles won and lost. The codicil lay archived beneath government seal, Immune to scorch or scandal. While Hawthorne House opened its doors once a year for cancer research galas where Dani and Haley, dressed in complimentary silks, greeted guests side by side. Some observers called the détente miraculous. Others believed only the weight of Bill's memory kept chaos at bay. Yet in quieter rooms, Dani sometimes fingered the signet ring and heard Bill's final word against her ear. Enough. She carried it like a compass, steering Hamilton fortune toward horizons uncharted. Determined that no rival, no codicil, no empire would again turn love into war.